Hello everybody and welcome to my Disneyland Magical Audio Tour vlog update for August 11th, 2017. I've made a lot of additions to my website since my last update, and I'm going to share those with you right now. But first, I want to mention that beginning September 1st, I am going to have my annual Supercalifragilistic September, a month-long tribute to the Sherman Brothers as my Disney Song of the Day. So every song throughout September will be a classic Sherman Brothers song. So that has proven to be very popular, and I've been doing it for a few years, so look for that again this year. All of the additions that I've made to my site since my last update are of course on my Disneyland After Dark chapter, and it's pretty much all of the things I mentioned in my last update that I would be adding. I have since added them, so I'll quickly go over what those things are. If you could hear that, that was my cat Lily saying good morning. She's been a little attention hungry this morning, so she's right by my side here. First of all, track number 35, the Yachtsman Quartet. This track has been on the site for a long time, but I did some major cleanup on it, took out a lot of background hiss, a lot of glitches and little, mistakes. It's from a live recording, so there are some, ambient noises in the background that I got rid of, and it's a huge improvement over the old version. So be sure to check out the new improved Yachtsman Quartet. As I mentioned in my last vlog, I would be adding some additional songs to a couple of my recently added mixes on this chapter, one of them being Hootenanny and the other one being Humdinger. And I have completed those additions, and the new versions are both posted on my site now. I am providing the person who does my notes for this vlog, Melanie, I'm providing her with a complete track list for both of these, the updated track list. So when I post the notes, you'll be able to see the full track list for Hootenanny and Humdinger with the new additions, and I have indicated on the list which additions are the new ones, just so you have a record of that if you're interested. And so look for that in a few days. The next addition I made is a brand new track, which I had mentioned last vlog update, and it is now completed and posted. It's the Tomorrowland Terrace Pop Pourri, and this includes a lot of music from the 60s that are from artists that played at the Tomorrowland Terrace. It's all of the kind of the go-go dance music variety. A lot of fun, a lot of, if you're into like classic 60s type music, you'll really enjoy this one. I had a lot of fun putting this one together. Again, I'm providing Melanie with the listing of all the songs included in this mix, and she will post that in the upcoming notes that will follow this vlog. I forget what I was going to say, sorry. This is not an edited vlog, people. This is all one take only. Scrolling down a little further, made some more additions to the Phantasmic section of the chapter, starting with track number 95, Jambalaya Jazz Band. This is the band that will play on the Tom Sawyer Island rafts before the show as sort of a pre-show, and also during the Star Wars Land Galaxy's Edge construction. they were performing concerts at night because the Phantasmic show was not being presented. This is not authentically music by the Jambalaya Jazz Band. I listened to recordings of the Jambalaya Jazz Band. They do not have any album recordings. They have not produced a professional album. The only recordings I have of them are live in park videos that people, recorded, just amateur guests in the park. So using the sound of their band, the type of instruments they play and the style of their music, I found a pretty close match sound-wise to this group. And it's not authentic, but it's pretty close to the sound. And I mean, it's Dixieland jazz, and it's traditional Dixieland jazz songs like When the Saints Go Marching In and things like that. So it's pretty close. And I also added some really fun the sound effects that you hear at night along the rivers of America, of the crickets and whatnot. So it sounds pretty close to what you would hear in the park, even though the music is not authentic. I have to admit, I can't pass it off. Rivers of America Phantasmic announcements. What this is, it's the full Rivers of America waterfront loop that you hear all day, not just at night. But at night, you hear it before Phantasmic begins, and a lot of people gather there before that. So I thought it would be important to include it in the After Dark page. But in addition to the music, I also have the 30-minute, 15-minute, 10-minute, and 5-minute show announcements. So as you're listening to the loop, every once in a while, the announcements will cut in and say, Phantasmic is about to begin, all that. So look for that. That's a lot of fun. I also added the song I mentioned on my last vlog update, the exit music for Phantasmic 2017. I don't have, a lot of people have asked me, do you have the new soundtrack for Phantasmic? No, I do not. Hopefully, at some point, I will obtain that, but at the present time, I do not have it. However, as at least something to represent the new Phantasmic, I do have the exit music because it's the same exit music used at the Tokyo Disney Sea version of Phantasmic. So I included that here. Scrolling down. Down. We have... Well, I did add one song to my Tomorrowland Terrace section, this Club Buzz Sandbox. This is an older band that played there when they still had the Tomorrowland Terrace decorated to look like Buzz Lightyear, and they had a Buzz Lightyear show during the day. They performed there at night during that era. So that's why the stage looks a little strange in this picture. That's what it looked like when it was Buzz Lightyear inspired. I did finish one of all of these songs. I have a lot more to go, but at least one of them is completed. And down at the bottom of the page, I added some new things and improved some old things. First of all, I've always had this Wurlitzer Music Store track on the site, but it was only one song. It was from the album, if you're familiar with the album, called Echoes of Disneyland. Well, I'd only had one song from the album, but now I made it the full album. But what's different from the album, which you can actually hear the full album on my Disneyland Records chapter, what's different about this version is underneath the music I have the sound of crickets chirping, and it just gives it kind of a romantic, nighttime, peaceful feeling to it. And so if you want to hear it without crickets, go to Disneyland Records. If you want to hear it with crickets, here you go. Closing announcements. I have two versions. I used to only have one version, and the version I had, I made it longer, and then I added an additional version. The Jack Wagner version It has two variations of the park closing announcements now. Before I only had one variation, and now I've extended it so there's two different versions of it. Bill Rogers, who's the current announcer for Disneyland, a friend of mine sent me a recording of his closing park announcements, which I did not have until now. So I added that, and also the music that I used underneath the announcements comes from the VHS tape, the sing-along songs Disneyland Fun. It's the ending music from that. It's not the authentic, it's not music that they actually play under the announcements. I added the music to give it a little bit of, so it's not just someone talking, it's more of a listening experience. And it's a lot of fun. I really like how it came out. But just keep in mind, it is not what you would actually hear in the park. The announcement is, but not the music. The music comes from a VHS from the 90s called Disneyland Fun. So that is all the additions I've made. Right now, my agenda is to get this Tomorrowland Terrace section completed. I have all of these bands to add. Everything is gathered together. All the mixes are put together. I just have to do the final editing on all of these. And if you've been watching and paying attention, you know that the final editing can sometimes be the hardest part and the longest part. And then, of course, the other section I have to complete is the big bands in Disneyland. And as I had mentioned before, I was looking, and I'm still looking, for better sound quality versions of all of these bands. If you know of anybody, or if you yourself has access to the Disney Channel series Big Bands in Disneyland and has some good copies of these programs, I'm definitely interested in talking to you, so get in touch with me. As I currently stand, I'm missing the Glenn Miller program episode. The version I will be adding is a recording from the same year of the same orchestra, but it is not the recording from Disneyland. I have a great placeholder that kind of sounds very close to what you probably would have heard on that Disney Channel program, and I will be adding it, but I would prefer to have the authentic version, and if anybody has that, let me know. Also, a couple of these, the sound quality is not that great. I was thinking about not adding them, but I decided that just so it's a complete set, I'm going to add everything and try to do my best to improve the audio quality. Part of the problem is when people are applauding, it kind of sounds muffled. So I'm thinking of maybe replacing the applause with some applause from, like, the applause on the Count Basie track sounds great, but like the applause on the Woody Herman sounds all muffled. So I might take the Count Basie applause and replace it over the Woody Herman applause to just kind of make it sound a little less muddy. And when they're playing the music, it's not as bad. It's just that applause, and it's in between the songs that kind of sounds kind of bizarre. So I'm going to do what I can to try to fix that. But again, I would so much prefer to just have a better copy of all these things rather than try to play games. But I'm going to do what I can, and I'm going to try to add everything. I'm not going to leave anything out. The other program that I do not have the full program for is the Artie Shaw Orchestra. I only have a portion of that episode. So the two that I'm really mostly looking for as far as content are the Glenn Miller and the Artie Shaw. And then the others, I have the full episodes, but in some cases the sound quality is not that great. So if you have access to any of these, please let me know. And so that's the other section I have to work on. So I'm going to work on the Tomorrowland Terrace and then the big bands in Disneyland. There's about 25 tracks left on this chapter to work on. Each one is an average of 1 hour each. It's 25 hours of music to add. So it's going to take me a while. But I'm hoping that by my birthday, which is about a month and a half from now, I'm kind of shooting for that to be my my date to have this chapter finished. Fingers crossed. Now, once I finish this chapter, I had mentioned that I plan on going back to working on my holiday time chapter because I didn't want to dig into the Christmas music during, in May. I didn't want to edit, so I had added all the non-Christmas sections to that chapter, but I am going to go back and work on the Christmas section later in the year, and I still plan on doing that. But before I get to that, because I'm going to wait till about Thanksgiving to start working on that, before I get to that, I actually have some new things to add to my first chapter, the Welcome to Disneyland chapter. I have some new content. That was a chapter that was already completed, but I have some new stuff now to add to that chapter. Some really fun stuff. So I plan to work on that for a little bit. And if it's still not Thanksgiving by the time I finish working on the Welcome to Disneyland chapter, I'll probably work on some of the things that I have been putting off, like the Disneyland Railroad tracks on my Chapter 2, Hometown USA, Town Square. A lot of people have been anxiously awaiting me to edit those. I'm not going to make any promises. Those are really difficult things to edit. That's why I've been putting them off. There's a lot of work. But I might consider working on that. I mean, at some point it will get done, but I may try to do it this year, but I might hold off till next year. So anyway, that's what's going on with the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. I hope everybody's having a very enjoyable summer, and I will talk to you again in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye, everybody.